east side of the US and the Bahamas.
Now it's 7:10, as we've been hearing this morning. Schools rated outstanding by Ofsted can go years without being inspected. In May last year, there were 300 of these schools which hadn't been assessed for more than a decade. We're talking about England, of course.
Yeah, the government wants to change it now, saying that parents deserve more up-to-date information. Let's talk to head teacher Simon Kidwell. He's in the studio with us here this morning to shed a bit of light on it. Is this the right thing to do?
Absolutely. There's some schools, like you said, which have gone over 10 years. I teach in Hertford Manor Primary School, which is in Cheshire. Our neighbouring school hasn't had inspections since May 2007. And to put that in context, Tony Blair was still Prime Minister when some of these schools were last inspected. And
that was because that was, at that time, was graded as being outstanding. And so the government said, OK, you're doing the right thing. You don't need to be looked at too closely. Yeah,
Michael Gove decided when he became Minister that outstanding schools were exempt from routine inspection. But we have had some schools which have been inspected. Special schools have been inspected every 4 years, and nursery schools have been inspected every 4 years. So actually making sure that all schools are inspected on a regular basis will be welcomed by head teachers.
Welcome by head teachers, not always by teachers themselves. Just picking up on some of the Twitter response to this morning, Vic says, an Ofsted inspection is a week's snapshot of a school at best. Of course, outstanding schools should be treated the same as all other schools, but even better would be to scrap Ofsted. It's not fit for purpose. It damages schools, careers and communities. But at the moment, it's the only resource, it's the only assessment we have, isn't it, for making judgments on schools and how they're performing?
Yeah, firstly, actually, inspections are now, we're currently 1 day, they're moving to 2 days. Inspections focus on the leadership of the school and they don't judge individual lessons. So actually inspection in terms of the burden on teachers has improved greatly in my 25 years.
And we know that there is extra funding for schools, which has been announced over the weekend. There is, I think, some concern that some of this will be hived off to Ofsted to fund these extra inspections.
Well, Ofsted will need more money because actually what we don't want is an overworked inspection workforce where actually they haven't got the money to do the inspections. But we must make sure that that money doesn't come from the extra amount announced for the school budgets.
If the Ofsted inspections have been slimmed down anyway, are they actually fit for purpose still?
I'm also a school improvement advisor for Cheshire West, and we see that most of the inspections give accurate judgments. However, Ofsted only gives a snapshot, and we would like to see Ofsted looking more at supporting schools, especially those schools that need support. There's an announcement today that there's 400 schools that are stuck. Schools which haven't been good for almost 12 years. We would like to see Ofsted focusing in those schools and using their expertise and resources to support schools.
Because part of the reason that the outstanding schools were taken out of this process all those years ago was because they wanted to focus more on the schools that needed to be brought up and improved.
Yes, that's right. That was the thinking behind it. But actually, it's gone too long, and we've seen too many outstanding schools actually fall into requires improvement or special measures when they've been re-inspected. So it is the right thing to do, but it needs more money, and that money should not come from the pot which was announced on Friday.
But that's the absolutely key point. I know that some schools that fell in this category were re-inspected because of specific issues, but in those cases 80% of them had their status downgraded, which is a really significant proportion.
But that's probably expected because they will have been re-inspected because of a drop in their performance data or because of a serious parental complaint. So actually that would be expected. But I would expect a lot of the outstanding schools which have been outstanding to remain outstanding because I know them, the ones that are outstanding by me, they're good schools.
How quickly? Because as everybody knows, a change in the headship or change in the staffing structure or whatever can result in a change in the school's fortunes. How quickly can a school go from being outstanding to struggling?
Less than 12 months.
That quickly?
That quickly.
So parents will look at a school and think, oh, that's a good school, it's just down the road. They might buy a house as a result of it, thinking they're going to a good school, and then they find that 2 years down the track it's not. An
Ofsted report is only part of the reason why a parent should choose a school. They should also talk to other parents. They should actually go and look at the school, go and meet the head teacher. That should be the key thing about choosing a school, because an Ofsted report is outdated the day after it's written. School performance data goes up and down, so I would urge every parent to go and look at their school before they actually choose it, and take the Ofsted report with a pinch of salt, because distilling a school into one number doesn't work.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. In terms of all this extra funding that's been announced over the weekend for schools, then £7 billion, will that, for you, do you think, fill the funding gap that teachers have been telling us about for so many years?
It will certainly go some way to addressing the funding gap. We've had reduced real-term funding since 2010, and in my school we've had to reduce the number of teaching assistants we have. We had to go from 15 classes to 14 classes. What it will do, though...
Because the government has consistently told us they've ring-fenced funding around education, but a rise in pupil numbers means per head... A rise in pupil numbers, a rise in staffing costs, so we have had real-term reductions of around 8%. Yeah. So in terms of the new funding, it's welcome. It will stop schools falling over, because we did have schools which are actually facing closure because of the funds. However, what we don't know yet is actually how much of that funding is going to be taken with increases in pay. So until we actually look at the detail, we don't know exactly the impact it's going to have. But it is welcome, because we've been saying for a long time we need new money from the Chancellor, and we've got it. Yeah. So that's a great thing. But let's go and see how it works out in the detail.
Back to school this week?
Yes, back to school on Tuesday, so looking forward to it very much. It's a busy time of year.
You've got your new pencil case and your new maths set?
I've had my suit dry cleaned.
Well, it's very good of you to give up your last last lie-in on the weekend before going back to school to come and chat to us. We're very
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Bye.
Right, 16 minutes past 7 now. Let's have a look at the weather forecast, see if you've got plans for today. You might be out and about. Ben, please see you and I have both got matching ties on this morning.